Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. So this is lesson number 6 from At-Tuhfah Al-Wasaabiyyah. And inshallah today we'll be starting with the alamatul ism, which are how do we know that this word is an ism. So we're going to go over the alamatul ism, then we're going to go over the alamatul fi'l, and then we'll go over the alamatul alamat, because the harf, it only has one alama. It doesn't have alamat. It's only one. So alamat al-harf. So inshallah, let's begin. So قال المصنف رحمه الله قال فالاسم يعرف بالخفض وتنوين ودخول الألف واللام وحروف الخفض وهي من وإلى وعن وعلى وفي ورب والباء والكاف ولام وحروف القسم وهي الواء والباء والتاء. So this is the matan, and inshallah we're going to explain this little by little. So he said أقول يتميز الاسم عن أخويه الفعل والحرف بعلامات كثيرة. So it has different signs that we know that this is an ism. ذكر المصنف منها أربعة. So the author has mentioned 4. الأولى الخفض والثاني التنوين والثالثة which is دخول الأل والرابعة دخول حرف من حروف الخفض, which خفض is a terminology that's used amongst the Kufiyin, and حروف الجر is used amongst the Basriyin. So but it has the same meaning. وهذه العلامات منها ما يكون في أول الكلمة. So he said some of these signs that show that it's an ism, they come in the beginning of the word, كأل وحروف الخفض, and also because the حروف الخفض, they come before the word. ومنها ما يكون في آخرها, and some of them they come at the end of the word, كالخفض وتنوين. So like the كسرة, because the khafd here it refers to the kasra, as we're going to see in a second. وتنوين, which is also the تنوين. فمتى رأيت في الكلمة علامة من هذه العلامات أو كانت تقبلها حكمت عليه بأنها اسم. So whenever you've seen one of these signs in the words, or you know that this word would accept that. So for example, al-kitabu, there's not going to be any tanween. But if you took off the alif wa lam, would it accept tanween? Yes, you say kitabun. Al-kitabu, you say kitabun if you took off the alif wa lam. The same thing if you say hada kitabun. There's no khafd. But if you could it accept it? Yes. You say for example, you say أتكلم عن كتاب. عن كتاب. I'm speaking about a book. أتكلم أو أتحدث عن كتاب. So here it took الخفض, الكسرة, right? Even though in the first sentence it didn't, but it could. So either one, it takes you see the sign on it, or you know that it can. كانت تقبلها. حكمت عليها بأنها اسم. فأما الخفض, so he starts off with the الخفض. فهو لغة ضد الارتفاع, is against ارتفاع. ارتفاع, it means it's not raised, it's lowered. So انخفض ما انخفض من الأرض, it means it's lowered, it's a lower part of the earth. It's not مكان مرتفع, it's the opposite of مرتفع, all right, which is raised. And ضد here, it means opposite, it's opposed to. So the opposite of ارتفاع is what? انخفاض. All right, وهو تسفل. تسفل, it means to be lowered. All right. واصطلاحا هو الكسرة التي تحدث عند دخول عامل الخفض أو ما ناب عنها. So هو الكسرة, and you guys gotta forgive me because if I'm not speaking clearly today, I have allergies, so my tongue is very heavy. So Allah musta'an, be patient with me. These days, a lot of these lessons, Allah musta'an, has been like that. My tongue is like really heavy today. So هو الكسرة التي تحدث عند دخول عامل. So it's a كسرة التي تحدث, it happens عند دخول عامل الخفض. So when it's something that causes the action of al-khafd, which could be it could be from idafa, like for example kitabu zaydin. So the idafa itself will cause the idafa causes khafd. It could be from the huruf al-khafd, which is like min zaydin, or anything that goes onto the word that causes this action to occur, which is al-khafd. أو ما ناب عنها. So ما ناب عن الكسرة, all right, not the amal. So the ما ناب عنها, it goes back to the kasra, because as we're going to see in the Bab al-I'rab, is that the kasra is the asl. All right, but then we also have the ya and we have the fatha. The ya, if it's for example, for the like the jam' mudhakkar salim, we don't say like for example mu'minun, mu'minin. We don't say mu'minin. So there's no kasr, there's no khafd here. It's the ya is going to be the na'ib and al kasr, and also with the asma that are غير munsarif. That's mamnu' min as-sarf. So if you say like for example, ذهبت إلى فاطمة. إلى فاطمة. You will not say فاطمة. ذهبت إلى فاطمة. So here the fatha is what you call a niyaba. It means it is the khafd here is not with a kasra because Fatima is mamnu' min as-sarf. Mamnu' min as-sarf. So this is what he's talking, and this will become clear inshallah later on. Like I said, when we go into the part on i'rab, we'll deal with this mamnu' min as-sarf and all this. And in this book specifically, he brings that in the later part. I don't know because this is the third edition. I haven't read the third edition yet. I've read the other editions. So, but I know he did that in the earlier editions. So inshallah, we'll see if he does that in this book where he goes over the mamnu' min as-sarf at the end of the book. So he said, فأما الخط فهو لغة ضد الارتفاع وهو تسفل واصطلاحا هو الكسرة التي تحدث عند دخول عامل الخفض أو ما ناب عنها وذلك نحو كسرة الدال من زيد في قولك مررت بزيد. Just like that, the dal is مكسور مررت بزيد. فزيد اسم بدليل وجود الكسرة في آخره ومثله قوله تعالى بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So here you have Bismillahi ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. So the ba here is a harf jar, and the ism here, Bismi, now is majroor bil ba. But then we have the ism is mudaf, and the lafz al-jalala is mudaf ilay. So now the lafz al-jalala, Allah, is now, it has a khafd, right? It's makhfud bil what? Bil idafa. And the Rahman ar-Rahim because it's tabi'. Alright, tabi'. So, and all this is going to come in the chapter on tawabi'. فكل من اسم ولفظ الجلالة الله والرحمن والرحيم أسماء بدليل وجود الكسرة في آخرها. So all of these are names, are asma, because you can see the kasra at the end. Alright, so that's what he's showing you. Showing you the alamat al-kasra. تنبيه الخفض عبارة الكوفيين والجر عبارة البصريين وهما بمعنى واحد. So tanbih is saying like tanbih is sort of like a note, like because tanbih obviously it means like yunabbih, it means to make somebody aware of something, to make somebody aware. So tanbih is the masdar of nabbaha yunabbihu tanbihan, to make somebody aware, and that's why we call the alarm clock munabbih, because it makes you aware, it wakes you up, and you become aware. So tanbih is like a note. Al-khafd is ibara, is a terminology used by the Kufiyin. Wal-jar ibaratul basarin. And what you're going to see once you finish al-ajrumiyyah and you go to the other books like Mutammima, you go to Qatar al-Nada, you go to Alfiyah, you go to Mughni Labib, you're going to see the terminology al-jar. And they're not going to be using a lot of these terminologies. Inshallah, we'll be trying to correct them throughout the book, because these are not the terminologies that you're going to be seeing if you read through the normal books. Because the majority of the books that we rely on are from the Basriyin. So the books of Ibn Hisham, the books of Muhammad ibn Malik, and whatnot, all of these books, they use the terminologies of the Basriyin. So you're not going to see, like, for example, the Masdar, you're not going to see Dharf al-Zaman wa Dharf Makan. You're not going to see these terminologies. So these terminologies, you only see them here. But inshallah, there'll be corrections throughout the books, just so you understand that the correct terminology that you need to know for the future, inshallah. So he said, وَمَا تَنْوِينَ. So he said, وَمَا تَنْوِينَ. So tanween فَهُوَ لُغَةً التصويت. التصويت, it means to make a sound. صوت يصوت تسويتا. ومنه قوله نون الطائر. إذا صوت. So if the bird makes a noise, then you say نون الطائر. It's like the chirping sound. واصطلاحا نون زائدة ساكنة تلحق آخر الاسم في اللفظ وتفارقه في الخط استغناء عنها بتكرار الشكلة عند الضبط بالقلم. I hate that ta'rif, wallahi ila al-ghaya. I think, if I'm not mistaken, was a Suyuti. They brought the best ta'rif for this, wallahi, the easiest ta'rif. And we'll get to that ta'rif in a second, inshallah, once we finish this one. So he said, وَاسْتِلَاهًا nunun زَائِدَةٌ. Because when you say kitabun, so the noon here is za'ida, it's extra. Sakina, because kitabun, you don't say kitabunununun. Alright, so it's sakina, kitabun. Talhaqu akhir al-ism. It comes at the end of the word. Kitabun fil lafz. But you say it. وَتُفَارِقُهُ fil khat. But you don't write it. You don't write it. You say it, but you don't write it. Because we say kitabun. So you hear the nun. But when we write it, we don't write it. استغناء عنها بتكرار الشكل. That means that we put the two, like for example, if it's a kitabun, we repeated the shakl, which is the dhamma, or the kasra, or the fatha. So you say kitaban, kitabin, kitabun, whatever. So basically, in place of like saying it or writing, in place of writing it, we just put the shakl, the shakla 2 times. All right, and the dhabati bil qalam. Whenever we write it out with the pen. So this is the definition here, and the easiest definition and the easiest understanding of a tanween. Allah musta'an. You can say, like for example, nunun za'idatun sakina tuntaq wa la tuktab. Khalas. It's said, but it's not written, and that's just so much easier. Like I said, I'm not sure if that was a Suyuti that brought that ta'rif. I have to go back and check it, inshallah, but it's a lot easier. But this is the definition that they gave: nunun za'idatun sakinatun talhaqu akhir al-ism fi al-lafz mutafarriqu fi al-khatti istighna'an anha bi takrar al-shaklati and al-dhabt bil-qalam. That's that definition. Reading that kind of like takes the breath away. Allah musta'an. It's very long-winded, but the main thing is it's a nun sakina that's said and it's not written. Khalas. In place of writing it, you just double up the shakla. نحو خالد ورجل ويد ومسلمات وحينئذ وصاح ونحو ذلك. فهذه الكلمات كلمات ونحوها أسماء بدليل وجود التنوين في آخرها. And the examples that you see that he gave here, خالد ورجل ويد ومسلمات وحينئذ وصاح, what he's trying to show you is the different types of tanween, because tanween itself is not just one type. So for example, you have like what you have the tanween tamkeen, which is خالد ورجل. And this type of tanween, it just goes on all the basic asma that are mu'arab, all right? And this is called tanween tamkeen. And also the word yadin is also tanween tamkeen. Although some people might say that it's tanween al-iwad because of the harf, because the asl of it is yadawun, but no, it's also tanween tamkeen. Then you have muslimatin, and this is what you call tanween al-muqabala. Tanween al-muqabala. And that's because it's muqabala to nun. That was because here the asl of it is muslima, and then you have the alif with ta mazidatan, which makes it a jama' muannath salim, which is muqabil jama' mudhakkar salim, which is like muslimun. So here with the muslimun you have the nun, all right, and then with the jama' muannath salim you put the tanween muqabil nun that you find in the jama' mudhakkar salim, and this is what you call tanween al muqabala. So muslimatin, qanitatin, like this, all right. So and then the next example he gave, وحينئذ. And حينئذ is tanween, also a tanween al-iwad, because it's iwad on the jumla. Because whatever it is, it takes the place of the whole sentence. Instead of you repeating the whole sentence again, then you just say حينئذ, ساعتئذ, يومئذ. You know, so if you say, like for example, so we look at like Surah Al-Rum, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, في بضع سنين لله الأمر ومن قبل ومن بعد ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون. يومئذ is referring back to what? You go back and say غلبت الروم في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون. في بضع سنين لله الأمر ومن قبل من قبل ومن بعد ويومئذ يومئذ is عوض عن الجملة التي سبقت, which means من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون. يومئذ عندما حين يوم يغلبون الفرس. So on that day ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون. So the فرح المؤمنين will come when Rome هم يكون الغالب يعني في هذه الوقعة. So after, and this of course was the fighting between the Romans and the Persians, because the Persians defeated the Romans. So بعد غلبهم سيغلبون. So after the Romans would be defeated, because at that time the Muslims, they wanted the Romans to be victorious because they're considered from Ahl al-Kitab, and the Persians were Majus. So they knew that the Persians themselves, that they had more control, they would support the Mushrikeen. Whereas the Ahl al-Kitab, they would more likely support Islam and monotheism, because the Muslims, they're following a prophet, and they're not going to support the Mushrikeen, and that's the important thing. Even if they didn't support Islam, they wouldn't support the polytheists. So this is the main thing. So this is why they wanted them to be victorious. So he said, وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. يَوْمَئِذٍ is عوض عن الجملة سيغلبون. On that day, and then the day that they يغلبون, اليوم الذي هم يغلبون الفرس فيه يفرح المؤمنون. So this is what you call tanween al-iwad. Al-iwad, it means to like, what's the word in English for that? It's like you're giving somebody something to make up for something, like to compensate, like it's a compensation. So what it's doing is compensating. Instead of bringing the whole sentence again, you're using this word now to bring the whole meaning of the sentence back again without repeating the whole sentence. And then they brought the last tanween, which is in sahin. Sahin, which is a ism fi'l. Ism fi'l. Alright, but it takes the hukm of an ism, but it's ism mabni. So it's the ism fi'l amr. Alright, ism fi'l amr. So when we have sahin, I mean, there's two forms of this word. One is with a sakun and one is with the tanween. So what the tanween is, tanween a tankir. Tanweenu a tankir. And when we say sah, just with like sah, with just a sakun, it means like what you're doing is you're seeking that the person he stays quiet about one specific thing. So like if he's talking about something and you don't want him to talk about that thing, you say sah. But if you say sahin, now what you're telling him is that you stay quiet about everything. Like don't talk at all. Like sahin. And he uskut an jami' al-kalam. Ay kalam. So this is sahin, and this is what you call the tanween tankir. So that's why he's giving you these different types of examples to show you the different types of a tanween, which is not really majorly important right now, but it will be, like it will come in later books, inshallah. And but it's definitely good to know. It's good to know that not even the tanween itself they're not all the same. So he said, نحو خالد ورجل ويد ومسلمات وحينئذ وصحن ونحو ذلك فهذه الكلمات ونحوها أسماء بدليل وجود التنوين في آخرها. So that's how we know that the ism fi'l is a ism, and it's not a fi'l, even though some people try to make it its own category, is because of the tanween, because it accepts tanween. So you see here sahin, so it cannot be a fi'l because it takes tanween. So because of that, we understand that this is considered ism. But like I said, you have the asma, you have ism, you have the mu'rab, and you have the mabni. Inshallah, we'll get to that later. He said, وَمَعْنَ تَلْحَقُ آخِرَ الْإِسْمِ فِي اللَّفْظِ وَتُفَارِقُهُ فِي الْخَطِّ. He says, so the meaning that it comes at the end, like this nun sakina, it comes at the end of the word, a spoken word, like it's spoken, but it's not written. أن هذه نون ينطق بها عند وصل الكلام ولا تكتب في الخط. That is spoken, is spoken, whenever you're continuing speech. I mean, obviously, if you just say, for example, اشتريت كتابا, you're not going to say اشتريت كتابا. You're not going to say the noon because you didn't have a wasl في الكلام. But if you say اشتريت كتابا أمسي, كتابا أمسي, now you would say kitaban because you're continuing the speech. But if you end with that, you will not say the noon. Alright, you wouldn't say it. So أن هذه النون ينطق بها عند وصل الكلام ولا تكتب في الخط, but it's not written whether there's wasl or no wasl. تقول جاء خالد, when you say جاء خالد, all right. If you're not going to continue, and then you say جاء خالد أمسي. ورأيت خالدا, if you stop, or رأيت خالدا أمسي. ومررت بخالد أمسي. If you're going to continue, or you just say ومررت بخالد. قال تعالى سلام قولا من رب الرحيم. سلام قولا من رب الرحيم. والشكلة المكررة هي الثانية, وأما الأولى فهي لبيان الإعراب. So he said والشكلة المكررة هي الثانية. The second one is for the nun sakina. وأما الأولى, which is the first shakla, فهي لبيان الإعراب. So when you say like kitabu, like with just one shakla, it'd be kitabu, it shows the i'rab that it's marfu'. And the second one would make it nun sakina, which is kitabun, that would be the second shakla. Or kitaban or kitabin, the same thing. So inshallah we'll stop here, and inshallah in the next lesson we'll take the rest of the ways that we know that ism is an ism, inshallah. So ilahuna subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu